Hey Garage Fabbers! In previous videos we framed out the structure of my buddy Mark's 86 Isuzu bed. We cut some sheet metal to fit the floor and the walls and built some fenders. Today we're going to cut some openings in the bed skin for access doors by tracing around the framework underneath and tracing around the new fenders. Tracing rather than measuring is obviously a lot quicker, but more importantly, it should eliminate problems caused by whatever imperfections I created. I already know, for example, that one fender is like an 1/8 inch longer than the other for some reason. Who knows? Maybe the access door openings aren't perfectly square or something, but we're tracing, so that's okay. Clecos are what's going to hold this whole thing together until we weld it.
Oh, wow, they're really, that's a good little spring. Oh, I love it. I didn't realize it was such a small hole.
So that's what we have to do right now. I might have you do that. Just drill a whole bunch of 1/8 inch holes everywhere because I have to crawl under and trace out the doors.
Do you want to lift it up and put it on the stand? So you're not crawling?
Yeah, I don't mind crawling.
Okay.
When tracing the fenders, I need to realize that I can't use those lines as accurate cut lines. That's because the fender flanges are going to drop down under the bed floor and push outward to the other side of the bed walls. So I used a ruler to measure and then redraw the lines in a better spot. So this is the ignore line because we set the fenders on top and on the inside. When we cut that out, it's going to move to the other side of the sheet metal. So this is just an estimate how much it's going to move back.
So we might have to trim it?
Hopefully.
Okay.
Hopefully we have to trim it versus having to...
Grow it.
Yes.
How do you like that blade? Don't like the blade.
It looks like it would be good, but it's not. Mine eats a lot better.
Severely screwed up this side. I drew the line stupid right there and caused me to cut that way far off. So we actually have to fill this in now. Man, that sucks. Yeah, let's just weld a big piece in there and cut it again.
It's a bit rusty.
It'd probably be a lot easier to stick the fenders on when it's upside down too.
Whoa. There's a picture right there. Hi.
Man, that's gonna make things so much easier.
Truck's always had a good bed on that.
True or false? You can cut curves with a cutoff wheel. That's true. If you gradually remove thin layer after thin layer from the top down, you can slowly create a curved cut. The key is to not allow the straight cutoff wheel to drop down too far into the curved cut, or your disc will bind and probably explode, which is a pretty gnarly and dangerous event. So working with somebody else is not something I'm used to, and oh my goodness, it is a good time. He's funny and he knows how to do stuff. So one, we get a whole bunch more work done, hell of a lot faster, and he keeps me from making really big mistakes. So you're thinking it'd be pretty cool to attach the fender tubs to the floor while the floor was out, because gravity. It's gonna be really easy to weld this on with the lips there, but Mark was able to foresee that it was going to be impossible to put the floor in if the tubs were attached to the floor because of this lip right here. Sidewalls have to be in there first because we did this little ledge right there for the floor to sit on. So if you drop the floor in on top of that lip, how do you get this fender lip behind the wall? It's impossible. So we've decided that the fenders have to go in first, and that's what we're doing right now, is figuring out where those go using the walls. The walls are going to position the tubs. Once again, I'm forming a really long bend by first scoring the metal and then using clamping hand seamers. The metal is really thin at the crease after scoring, so I'll need to run a weld bead along the corner later and then clean it up. It totally sucks, but if you don't have a sheet metal brake that can bend 5 feet of material, there's not much choice. It's time to frame out the access doors using mostly 1x1 inch thin wall steel tubing. I measured the access door openings and then subtracted a 1/4 inch because I'd like a 1/8 inch gap all the way around them. I cut each piece very precisely and then tacked them together, not so precisely, with just a single tack weld right on the corner. The reason is this will allow me to manipulate the frame once it's tacked together to make sure the angles are absolutely perfect. I'm using angle iron on the front edge of these doors. I've never done that before, but I wanted to try something new. If I used 1 inch square, as I usually do, when the door starts to open, the bottom corner of the front edge will get really close or touch the door opening. But by using angle iron, there is no bottom edge, and it'll make it easier to grip the door edge with your fingertips. Because Mark very carefully cut the openings out for his access doors, it would make sense that the pieces that he removed would fit perfectly back in. So that said, if I were to position the frame to fit the piece that he took out perfectly, the door should fit perfectly, right? At least that's what I'm hoping for. But because things are usually not that easy, I'm just gonna put 4 tack welds on it so that when it doesn't fit the way I think it's gonna fit, I can just take it right off. And now that I'm thinking about it, I just drilled 4 holes for 4 little spot welds. Spot welds are kind of a pain in the ass to remove. They're fairly easy to remove with something like this, but that will leave an even larger hole. I don't know if I want to do that. I think maybe I should just tack weld along the edge in a couple spots, because those would be really easy to remove. What the hell? I'm going to do it anyways. So what I'm doing is I'm lining this up to one side and one side only. I am making sure that it's centered, that it feels like the same amount is hanging over on both sides, all going by feel, and that this edge is totally straight. This edge up here, I can tell is not straight at all. I've got like a 1/4 inch hanging over on this side, and the frame is actually sticking out a little bit on this side, but that should be okay because I only put the tack welds on the corners there, so I should be able to move this frame around all over the place. So I just want this edge to be straight and for it to be centered on this part of the frame. Measure twice. All right, on the other side, this side is hanging over quite a bit, so I'm hoping I can just push this top over onto the frame. A little bit more. It's still hanging over, but it feels like the other side is about the same. All right. What I'm doing right now, before I even try this for test fitting, is knocking down these edges that are hanging over a little bit too far. And I really think that's stupid. And I'm going to do it anyways because I'm kind of big on self-talk, so I'm not going to say I'm stupid, but I don't know what else to say. I could go and I could test fit this. This overhanging is probably a sign that my frame is imperfect because Mark cut these top pieces out, and so they should fit perfectly in the hole. And yet I'm still going to, oh man, I'm still going to knock this down like a moron. Just saying that out loud made me realize just how stupid that is. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop knocking this down, and I'm going to go try it right now, like I should.
All right, what I'm doing right now is clamping some tubing onto the door frames right now, so I have something to set these doors on, because they'll just fall through otherwise, because I haven't made the devices to hold them in just yet. And we'll talk about that later. All right, okay. That was a fun noise. It's looking like the frame is actually really good, and I can go ahead and knock that down exactly the way I was going to. But now I can be a little bit more confident about it. That worked well, so I'm going to do it again. I'm about to throw a bunch of words at you, and I'm worried it's going to be confusing, but it's important, so here we go. It's daylight. Now I can see my doors sitting in place, and what I noticed was they don't fit. Now, they kind of fit. They fit on the corners. All the dimensions of the door are correct, but it does not fit in the middle, and I realized that is because this back beam somehow got warped. I think it got warped probably when I welded in the supports on either side. I don't know how that happened. It just happens when you weld stuff. One good thing about that is my new door design that I was telling you about with the angle iron in the front. This will allow me to just trim this edge so that it fits my warped beam in the back. My concern is that I had to score the sheet metal so that I could bend the end down in the back, and I have not welded this yet. So when I weld this, it could potentially warp this section even more. So I'm not going to trim the door yet. I think what I'm going to do is make a couple lengths of metal that will fit in the door opening that hopefully will brace this section of frame so that it doesn't warp anymore. And then I will trim the door to fit. It's such a slight curve that you won't even be able to know that the door has been shaped to fit. But I have to get control of this warpage before it gets too bad that I can't fix it. Did any of that make sense? Let me know. This whole section is tacked up with this brace in place, which hopefully is keeping the warpage down to a minimum. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to weld the inside of this sheet metal first, because I think what that's going to do is it's going to want to shrink this top corner, making it want to curve this way, the opposite direction that it's curved right now. And then I will weld the outer edge. Is that gonna work? I don't know. The pros would know. The pros are watching this video right now saying, nah, that ain't gonna work, bro. But I'm not a pro, so I'm gonna try that. And I'll let you know how it goes. All right, the front edge of this is completely welded up, but the little boom stand I made for my cell phone likes to swing out of the way, so you didn't get to see any of that. Maybe that's the universe telling me that I need to do less time lapse. Now I'm going to weld up the back. I was kind of hoping that while I was welding the back, this support that I just hammered in there would just fall out because it started to warp the opposite direction, but it didn't. Oh well. So now I'm going to weld up this edge. I'm going to hammer that back out and see what the warpage looks like. My back hurts from bending over and welding, so I'm going to take a break from that for a little bit, and instead I'll mess around with some other stuff. Ever since we cut the bottom of this bulkhead piece, it no longer has any structure, so I decided what I'm going to do is take some 1/2" material and just weld it in the corner here. I could use some angle iron for that too, but I never have enough angle iron, so I don't want to use that. I have a whole bunch of this 1/2" square tubing that I never get to use. It's just kind of in my way, so it's a good time to use some of it. The Cleco holds the panel to the framework underneath, and when I don't need the Cleco anymore, I'm left with a hole that I need to weld up. And when I weld up that hole, I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to plug the hole, but two, I can also see the framework back behind there. So when I fill up that hole, I also just spot welded the panel to the framework. And now I'm going to do that 150,000 more times. I don't know how much sense this is gonna make, so I should probably just do it rather than explaining it, but I can't help it, so I'm gonna explain it. This back piece right above the roll pan is kind of 2-ply. Got an upper piece and then a lower piece that was once structure, but they're no longer attached. So in order to make this structural again, I need to weld these together. But I need some sort of ledge to attach this removable panel that we're gonna put back there. So I'm going to insert a piece of 1" angle iron into this little slot back there, so I'll have something to weld the bottom piece to and something to weld the top piece to, and I will have a ledge to attach the door. Make sense? Okay. Well, these 1/8" holes are not working very well as far as tacking this angle iron in, which is kind of making me question all these spot welds. on the entire bed. I hope we're not gonna have a bunch of rattles later because I thought these were bonding to the frame and they're actually not. I don't know. These were drilled through both the frame and the skin. So maybe it would be different if I was drilling all the way through. And then all these other holes I'm gonna make, we're gonna step up to 1/4 inch so we can get a bigger weld. There we go. It's better. It's a lot better. It's actually holding. I'm just gonna put a couple tack welds on the back side of this right now, because eventually this bed's gonna get tilted up. And the bottom's gonna be a lot easier to access. This is really uncomfortable. I don't think these welds are gonna look very good at all. So I'm not gonna do a lot of them. Beautiful. I have got a couple hours of welding to do and I don't feel like filming it. And it's not really fun to watch anyways, but I can show you the steps. On the bed rails, on the sides of the bed, I started just tacking everything in place. But this entire seam up here is gonna need to get welded and I don't want the bedside to warp. So we have to keep the heat down quite a bit. So we do that by tacking it repeatedly and letting it cool. Working slow and spreading it out so that the heat doesn't transfer into the bedside and make it all wonky. That is the same thing that we have to do with these door openings. These I do a little bit longer than just tiny little tack welds because this is quite a bit thicker and it's straight and I don't seem to have much of an issue with warpage on that, but that's just because it's straight and it's super thick metal. It's practically plate. Eventually, we get to the point where it's fully welded, I'll come back and we'll start talking about how we smooth it out. As I mentioned, I've got like a couple hours of welding to do and I don't want to do time lapse or nothing. It kills my battery and it's just boring. So once I get this thing fully welded up, I'll get back to you. I'm gonna show you how I finish these corners, but I'm only gonna show you like 6 inches of it because it takes a long time. I've got 2 grinders set up. I've got one with a very aggressive flap disc. That's what I'm going to use to start to knock down these welds a little bit, because even though you probably can't see it, they stick up a little bit on the top, they stick out a little bit on the side, so we're going to knock those welds down. And then we're going to finish it with this flat disc, which is 120 grit, and this is flexible, and this is new to me. I've been fabricating for a long time and I've never used these, but I've been seeing them on like Instagram and stuff like that. I don't know how I lived without it. It's crazy. But because this is so aggressive, this is a Cubitron 2 flap disc. It's a 40 grit. This will tear through this top piece. So I'm just gonna be very slow and very careful to just hit the welds and smooth them out a little bit. And I'm gonna start on just the top right now.
Oh, hey. Yeah, there's going to be like 5 minutes of this. Just 5 minutes of straight grinding. So if you want to move ahead to the next chapter, you won't hurt my feelings. I promise. 5 minutes.
So that's just the top, just the welds have been hit, and just a little bit of the skin. And you know what? I'm not gonna run this in time lapse. I'm gonna let this play at regular speed. So if this is really boring to you, fast forward a little bit, because I want you to see how long this actually takes. Now we're gonna do the sides the same way. think I just realized my hat was getting in the way the whole time. I am sorry. I'm gonna put it on backwards. You didn't miss much though. Top is pretty smooth. The side is pretty smooth. Now we still have this ugly corner right here, and we're gonna even this out just nice and carefully. I should probably still be using a flap disc, but go down to maybe a 120 grit, but I don't wanna. This works so fast, and I'm impatient. And what I'm doing right now is I'm going really fast so that it skips over all the crevices. I don't want to go slow because the flap disc will follow the ups and downs, and then I'll have a really wobbly corner. Now I'm pretty smoothed out. You can see I got some pits here still. These are not going to go away. I could grind these down all the way, but I don't want to because I don't want to grind the weld all the way out. I'm going to go and I'm going to hit these little pits with the welder. It's basically like starting over again, but it's not as bad as it sounds because I'm just going to have a few tack welds here and there. Nice and straight. We just have some really heavy scratches from this aggressive flap disc, so we're gonna smooth all this out with this guy right here. And that's it. It's about 7 inches, and it took that long. Now I got to do like another 50 feet, I think. Okay, it's been about 2 hours just grinding. My neck hurts and I don't want to do this anymore. We're definitely getting there. Got a lot of pits to fill in. Both doors are nearly complete. To be honest, I'm just done. This is supposed to be fun, and this tedious stuff is never fun. So I'm gonna take a break from this. I wanna work on the doors a little bit because I've got a couple ideas for the access doors and I just wanna play with them. So let's do that and actually have some fun today. This front opening is going to have 2 doors. 2 different doors, as in you'll be able to pull out one door and swap it with another door. I'm not going to explain why yet. It's a surprise. The rear hatch, on the other hand, is just going to have 1 door. And I haven't talked to Mark about this yet, but I decided to make that rear door semi-permanent. You can take it out, but not the way that you can take out the front door. So I want to play around with a hinge idea, which isn't that fascinating. In fact, I'm going to start by just using a bolt to make sure it works because, well, I'm going to put a pivot point right about here so that the back of the door drops down while the front of the door comes up. That's where the fuel filler is going to be. So I want it to be super easy for him just to pop the door up, just like a regular gas door, just a hell of a lot bigger. Door is in and it's centered about as good as I can get it. Right now we're doing hinges and I want to put the hinges about 2 inches from the back. And the reason I want that is because the frame of the bed is 2 inches tall. I know the frame of the bed doesn't hit anything. So if I make sure that the door doesn't drop down below the frame, nothing should hit the door either, right? I'm going to mark onto the bed as well because there's going to be some holes in the bed and some holes in the door. Our test hinges are just going to be a pair of long 6mm shank bolts just to see if this whole idea works without the back rubbing. So I'm just going to drill some holes in there, put these bolts in there and see how it works. If it works, we're going to get a lot more fancy than just a couple bolts. I want the holes to be exactly the same distance from the top. So I'm just going to use this little guy that will help me scribe a line the perfect distance from the top. All right, let's see if this works. You think it'll work? I think it'll work. Put some nuts on there. You excited? I'm excited. All right, is this back edge gonna rub? Come on. No rubby rub. Ah, it's rubbing. It's rubbing. I haven't welded this yet, so I might be able to just form that metal a little bit in the back so that it doesn't rub. Other than that, that's pretty good. And then I can put a stop right here for this door so he doesn't need a doohickey, you know, a thing. What do you call those things? The thing that, you know, the thing. Yeah, we don't need one of those. Just let the gravity hold it open with a stop right there. In fact, let's put a temporary stop in there right now. There we go. Nice. Because the front door is going to have 2 different versions that get swapped out, I'm not going to do hinges. Instead, it's getting pins. It's going to operate like an old target top, which my first truck had. This I'm going to need to take quite a bit more time lining up these holes because these pins have to be perfect. So I'm going to have to do some math when locating the front receiver holes for these pins in the bed itself. I'm still going to start with temporary pins though. Just some small ones that I will make bigger. Pins that I make first are probably just going to be 1/4-inch rod that go into 1/4-inch holes. So in testing, the pins are going to be metal to metal, and that will rattle like crazy. So it's not always going to be metal to metal. Once I get the pins lined up and the door fitted properly, I will make the pins probably like 1/2 inch, I believe, because I have some rubber bushings that I'm going to use to isolate the pins so that they don't rattle. I made some temporary pins out of some 1/4-inch rod that are 2 inches long, so that when I put them all the way through 1-inch square tubing and about an 1/8 inch sticks up, that means that I have about 7/8 rod sticking out the bottom, so that it's as long as it can be, but it won't hit the backside of the framework in the bed. And I'm just barely welding them in so that I can cut them out really easily later, because I think the pins I'm going to use are 1/2 inch.
I'm sorry, I gotta do it. We're gonna finish this bed in the next video. I wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone that left a comment on the last video. I announced that I got fired from the place that I worked for 17 years and that I was going to focus on YouTube for a while. The amount of support that followed, it was crazy. I've said it before, Garage Fab viewers are a different breed of kind and caring humans. I told you I was a little nervous about trying to make this show work. After that response, I've got quite a bit more confidence and motivation. To quote many of you, let's go. Until the next one, you beautiful, beautiful people, keep moving forward.